welcome to the Talking Turkey Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Manny Commission Menez. I'm joined by Cody Hot Cup of Java Williams. Good to see you again.
Yep.
Good evening to you too. And also Mile High Tim Lewis. Mile High representing tonight. Tim Lewis.
Nah, don't associate me with that. But hello. Good to see you guys.
Well, I mean, we got a lot to talk about, right? We're going to get into some of the, obviously, matchups that happened, some of the big player performances, right? The feasting turkeys that we saw over the weekend. But, you know, what we always do, we're on Monday night. We just got done. We kind of digested that insane debauchery, what we just saw in Buffalo tonight. I'll kind of lay some context with this. When Buffalo's playing primetime, they have the most primetime games, by the way, of any team in the NFL this season. So when they're on primetime, I got to make sure, things are good at home, the wife feeling good because she's a big Buffalo Bills fan. So I had to make sure the dinner was ready tonight before she got home from work. I had to make sure the jacuzzi was ready. I had to rub her feet because Josh Allen's just making you put in extra work because the dude's now doing his part to make my wife happy. He's playing terrible. So it's unbelievable. So you guys break it down what we just saw on Monday Night Football. I'm still reeling from it. Josh Allen, what is going on here? Tim, take it away.
Yeah, Buffalo did everything they could to give that game to the Broncos. That's the only way I could put it. It's just like almost everything that could go wrong, especially in the first half, did. You know, their first play was a fumble that they lost. Their second play on offense was almost an interception. Like the guy just didn't get his second foot down. And I mean, I don't know how they ended up with 4 turnovers. They gave the Broncos excellent field position all night. They gave them a couple penalties on the last drive, which, you know, that pass interference, I've talked about it many times. When a quarterback intentionally underthrows a receiver to draw a pass interference call and they get it late in the game like that, I think that's one of the worst plays in football, but it happens all the time. So what do I know? But that was atrocious. So
the underthrown long ball is the best play in football.
Yeah, it's like why try to actually complete it when you can just horribly underthrow it and have the receiver have to force his way through the DB trying to cover him that has no idea the ball's coming because he would probably think, oh, it's a professional quarterback that can actually throw it to this receiver who's past me. But anyway, I hate that play very much every time I see it. So, and then the 12 men. They were gifted a missed field goal, and then they had 12 men on defense. So just too many mistakes. And, to only lose by 2 points, it's like you can't feel that great if you're the Broncos to have that much go your way and still barely squeak out a win. But it's a win. They haven't done a lot of that this year. So I'm sure they're relatively happy with it, but they should have won a lot handier if they were actually a good team. So.
Yeah, I with you. I had a conversation with a friend of mine before the game. He had seen the line was Buffalo -7, and he's like, "Oh, how do you feel about that line?" I was like, "It's terrible. I don't like it at all. I don't feel like the Bills are going to win by more than 8 points. What are you, crazy?" I was like, "They might win by 3 or 4, maybe 5, but the way the Broncos defense has been playing, the way the Bills offense has played as of late, I don't feel like that's a good score. Even it's too much." And as the game was going on, he texted me after halftime. He's like, "Oh, that's a nice call." I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I just if you've really been watching the Bills play, you don't feel confident." While Josh Allen has been great in fantasy football and been incredible and just been the number one quarterback, in real football has not been that for the team. And Cody, I know we had our big matchup this week. We talked about it at the end of last week's podcast, and a lot
of
medium matchup. We had players that were big time, going into this match. I thought I had to be winning by at least 40 points, honestly, against you tonight. Luckily, I had a much wider spread than that because my team is amazing. But so I wasn't really worried about it. But I did feel like, Josh Allen maybe can put a 45. I was like, but I don't know. He didn't look. Today was his third worst performance of the season. How you feeling about Josh Allen? How you feeling about the Bills in general?
Overall, I still feel fine in general. Look, I mean, their schedule does get much tougher. They get the Jets next week, and then I think it's the Eagles, and then a bye week to kind of rest. They haven't gotten their bye week yet, so that bye week's coming up, but then they come back and play the Chiefs, whose defense is looking a lot stronger. So Josh Allen's definitely the key piece on that team. They throw the ball way more than they should. He seems to get a rushing touchdown every week, and he got another one tonight in the fourth quarter. So overall, I still feel fine just because of the volume that Josh Allen gets and his running capability. I think he ended up with 15 points in our league tonight. I needed 55, so he was almost there to beat you, Manny. It didn't quite work out. But luckily, I was able to kind of manage the season well enough to where I have a two game gap on you. So this win doesn't really mean much for either of us. So it's kind of just a little footnote on the season. I don't think anyone's really paying attention to this matchup too much. But yeah, I let you have this one, and it worked out. But I still feel fine with Josh Allen going forward. Rough night tonight. He's still the QB1 on the year. So if he struggles against the Jets and Eagles back to back going into the bye week, I'll be starting to sweat because my team's been pretty reliant on him and his abilities.
Well, I appreciate your your generosity and your altruistic behavior of letting
You're
me
welcome.
have
It's a gift to the commissioner. Thanks for running the league.
I appreciate that. We're looking at your team though. Gibbs is starting to come into form, so you must be feeling great about that, right? We were just talking about how Monty and Gibbs, what that split would look like, and it looks like Gibbs was getting the majority of touches, 60% of the snaps. So good for you. Great draft pick there, and you're feeling good about that, I'm sure.
Now I am. Early on, it was not feeling that way, especially after the first few weeks when Montgomery was getting 75-80% of those snaps. But he got hurt, and Gibbs has looked really good in his time away. So with Montgomery coming back, I was a bit unsure of how it would shake out. I knew he's earned more work, but it looks like he got about 60% of the carries compared to Montgomery's 40%. He was out there even on goal line work. People thought it was just going to be Montgomery, scored a 2-yard touchdown, and if I remember right, I think Montgomery got stuffed on his 2 goal line tries. And so then I think they ended up throwing the ball in that next situation. So if that keeps happening, it could look better. This is kind of what I imagined for Gibbs when I drafted him second. Ramondre, I made a trade for. He's on the Patriots. There's not really much you can say about the Patriots, and my receivers are volatile, and so I don't feel great about them. But I need Josh Allen and Mark Andrews to kind of carry me along with my Ravens defense. And if they can kind of get hot and go through the fantasy playoffs, I can make a run. Looking at your team, Manny, people are calling Pollard one of the biggest busts of the fantasy year. Your team overall is doing fine. How do you feel about the Pollard pick coming into this point in the season?
Yeah, my number one pick. It's a rough tough to follow, right? I'm like, okay, when is this guy finally going to break out? This week I expected it to be when Dallas just brought the pain to the Giants. I mean, it was not even close.
Oh yeah,
Dak was just throwing the ball all over the yard. Cooks got involved big time. Luckily I got Ferguson. Ferguson has been great for me. Luckily being a secondary receiver on that team. But my goodness, CeeDee Lamb. I was reading a stat. CeeDee got the 3rd highest yardage over 3-game span in NFL history, or maybe the 2nd highest span from a player. He's just been a beast over the last 3 weeks. He's been the number 1 player over the last 3 weeks in fantasy football. So good, that we talked about it though a couple weeks ago. Remember we said that schedule coming up for Dak was going to be, and the Cowboys, very easy, and expected to continue for the next 2-3 weeks. They have a pretty favorable schedule. So what I'm hoping at is that, Pollard's only giving me 5 on the low end, 5-6 points. On the high end, 8-9 right now. Is in that range.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, he's an RB2 easy right now. Is maybe a flex at this point.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this is the second. I don't know if it's the second week in a row or second week out of 2 weeks where the Cowboys put up 40+ points, and then you're excited to look and see what Pollard did. And he's got single-digit fantasy points for you. And when the team's putting up 40, which is almost inexplicable for a starting running back in an offense like that.
Yeah, he's had a couple called back because of ridiculous holding calls. So that's kind of annoying. So I feel like he's been robbed there. But what I don't like is that they're not giving him like the simple read option run plays that they should be giving him early in the games to have like kind of open up the field a little bit. So. And then when they're winning by so much, then they're pulling them out. So it's kind of weird. this week they do have Carolina. I believe that's a great matchup for running backs. You look at Carolina, they give up 100 yards to almost every running back they play. So we'll see if Pollard doesn't get it done this week. Obviously, I'm going to be hitting the panic button there. Luckily, I've got the legend Devin Singletary on my bench who who got his first 30 carry game in his career, and he rewarded the Houston Texans with a 23-point performance. He was outstanding. 150 yards, 1 rushing TD. So Singletary's the guy who used to be on Buffalo that we always believe like, oh, this guy could really be something, and he just never did. Maybe he's found a home. So my hope in Pierce is going to stay out one more week and see what I get. Of course, I'm going to ride that Singletary train.
Unless Singletary just took the job from him, Pierce has been getting less and less work. This might be the chance where we saw Gibbs kind of overtake Montgomery a bit. Maybe the same thing happens with Singletary, even with Pierce healthy.
Yeah, it's possible.
Pierce, although Montgomery's at least had good games, Pierce has not at all. So it's
fair.
like I think his job was probably easier to lose than Montgomery's would have been. So I'd be pretty surprised if Singletary doesn't get the majority of the work from now on, just based on at least he's done something. Pierce hasn't had really a game like that at all, not even close this year. So, but
yeah. So if you look at those two scenarios too, right? If I looked at the Pierce and Singletary situation, if I'm the coach, Singletary's my guy. You're gonna get majority of snaps. We'll see how it goes. We're gonna ride you until we can't ride you, right? Until you have a dud performance. With the Detroit situation, Monty was coming back off the injury. Gibbs was, the last 2 weeks has been outstanding. A third straight week now, right? For NBA Jam rules, he's on fire now.
There we go.
Right? He's on fire. So
I like that.
But when it comes to Monty, I believe him being back now, full health by maybe next week or the week after, I believe it'll be more of that 50-50 split, because I think Dan Campbell loves what he brings as far as hard-nosed football. That's Dan Campbell's style, right? We know that. And he knows Gibbs is his lightning rod. It's very much like how Reggie Bush and Lindell White used to be with the USC type of offense. Remember when they used to run the Thunder and Lightning? So yeah. And I think Dan Campbell likes that combination with the running backs, where I think both are going to get equal play. And Gibbs is still going to perform. He's going to average between 15, 20 points a game. Yeah. But I think Monty still has a role in the offense. So
don't you mean lightning and lightning? I mean, Monty had a 75-yard touchdown run this week. So
Tim's got a point. Tim's got a point. That breakaway
he's a bolt of lightning. Yeah.
So Tim, when you saw Monty running for 75 yards in the Chargers, how did that make you feel?
It made me feel like I'm about to pay Rob's league fee. He's going to do it against my team. He's going to get a 30-point game against my team, and it's just going to add insult to injury. So the fact that he didn't do it it's kind of comical, because that was in the first half, and that he had like 20 points in the first half. And that run alone was, I don't know what the exact total is. It's probably 15 at least for that touchdown run.
No, like almost a 20-point play, right? Because you get the 6 points, and then you got the 7 points for the yardage, and then you get
it's 16 at least, unless he went over 100 yards, and it's 17. So, and that was bad for anyone who has Gibbs too, because it's like, other than that, he really didn't look that great. I don't know what his other carries averaged out to. If he didn't have that long touchdown run, who knows if Gibbs might have earned more of the work going forward, rather than now it's like, oh, well, look at, they both ran for over 100 yards. So who knows what it will be. I mean, obviously, Montgomery's not terrible in that offense. He's not fast. He's got no business running for a 75-yard touchdown against anyone except for the Chargers. So, yeah, just atrocious.
Yeah, talking about that game, it was a game that was one of the game of the week. We had a few game of the weeks that were awesome. I was happy to see Justin Herbert perform. He was incredible in the game. He made every throw he had to. Keenan Allen left the game. He found, Quez Johnson finally got a touchdown, his first NFL touchdown of the season. Thank you. It was great. They look good. I mean, Eckler doing his thing again, back healthy. They look great. So it was great seeing Herbert get so many people involved. Even when Allen left the game and came back, he still was able to deliver and bring the team in. The coach, how long is this? Are they going to let this happen? Because he just doesn't know how to manage this team.
Forever and ever. It's been going on. I mean, they've had different coaches. This is Charger football for the last like 20 plus years, pretty much. Ever since Schottenheimer left, they've had all these various coaches. They've had all these teams that are supposedly super talented that just underperform year after year, no matter who the coach is. So, and it's like I said, the offense and defense are never in sync. The offense has a monster game, the defense doesn't show up. The defense has a monster game, the offense doesn't show up. It's usually the offense probably shows up more often than the defense lately, but they couldn't. And Detroit couldn't really stop the Chargers either. It was kind of like whoever got the ball last in that game was going to win, and it just happened to be the Lions. And so
it was a pure shootout. It was a pure shootout, which we love for fantasy football, right? And we love. I think people at the games love seeing that kind of stuff, right? Because every possession is a touchdown, which is fun. I didn't love the fact that the Chargers, Staley is running the tush push or the brotherly shove with a quarterback who has a broken finger twice back to back. Like, dude, what are you doing? What is going on? You must be clinically insane. Like, you have Eckler right behind him. Give him the ball.
And in his defense, not that I want to defend him really at all for that, but Eckler is running for like 2 yards a carry lately. They're not getting a lot out of the run game. So but I don't agree with having him try to sneak the ball in that situation. I think it was twice, if I remember right, in that game that he had quarterback sneaks like that, and he's still got the finger that's clearly bothering him. So it doesn't make sense. You've got Keenan Allen, they couldn't cover all day, and then you've got a 6'8" tight end that you could just throw the ball up to in that situation rather than try to risk him getting injured, either his hand or you never know what could happen. But there was I can't think, didn't someone injure themselves on a quarterback sneak?
Daniel Jones.
In the last couple years.
Daniel
Jones. It was
last season was Jalen Hurts. I had him. He hurt his shoulder on the brotherly shove, and he missed. So he hurt the shoulder 2 weeks before the fantasy football playoffs, and that ended up costing me in the playoffs because
that would have been you anyway.
And I'm sure there's been others where quarterbacks getting injured. Like I feel like there's a major injury like 2 or 3 years ago. I just can't think of who it was on a quarterback sneak, like a torn ACL or something like that. But there's just all kinds of things that can go wrong when you're just piling up like that, and it's. Yeah.
On your center too. I don't know how Kelsey doesn't get injured every time. He's got 5 dudes of 250 plus pounds just laying on him at the end of every time that happens.
Well, he just immediately like submarines the entire defensive line. So he must just hold his breath under there and just wait for everyone to get off of him. I don't know, but yeah, nobody can do it like Philly does, as annoying as it is. The teams keep trying. It looks silly when other teams try to do it, so they should really stop trying it. But it's all right. I never have high hopes for the Chargers anyway. The game was a lot closer than I thought it would be, frankly. So it sucks that they lost, but at least they were competitive, because that could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, they were competitive, and it was a fun game to watch. Just like a lot of the Browns-Ravens game was a great game to watch. Again, and then more family indications. I have the Browns defense. I was like, ooh, as the way the game started, I was like, oh man, this might be actually a bad game for the Browns. But they ended up getting to Lamar quite a bit. I was a little surprised. I was like, oh, they're getting to him. And then they caused that interception return, which was great. Tip pass, interception return. I was like,
yeah, that ball hung up for a while.
A long time.
Like a punt.
Yeah. So, but it was great. He caught it in stride and he was off to the races. Even Lamar went to catch him. So it was good that because Cody was getting. We were playing. Our defense was playing each other. So Cody was actually having a good game because Watson
Baltimore.
Baltimore was getting to Watson. So it was
first play was a pick six for the Ravens, I think, right?
Yep.
So a couple pick sixes in that game. So a lot of points, but I think that both defenses still put up a lot of points too because of those. So that was a crazy game.
Yeah, that was fun. And so both those AFC North games, I'm glad they're not those old school 6-9, 7-10 games anymore. Oh, I used to hate those AFC North games. Now they're much more exciting. The teams, do put up a lot more points, and they're fun to watch. So
sometimes
the Browns
Steelers and
play
Browns
Pittsburgh next week.
Yeah,
Watch what you say. That one's coming up next week. So
you're right. You're right. It could be a
that could
10-7
change
dud.
things.
Exactly. It could be a 17-point total. There, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
But as far as the team goes, though, Cody, you talked about your wide receivers. Deontay had a big week for you last week, but then he had another dud this week. He's been, coming off the injury, but Steelers are weird. I don't know what they're doing with their.
Well, that game plan against the Packers, as you know, they were just running the ball. Packers helped even make Najee Harris look pretty good in that game. So they just didn't need Pickett at all. Their defense and run game was what won it for them. And sometimes it just happens to you in fantasy where the coaches don't care about your team for some reason and your players, and they didn't care about Deontay in this game. And it was just all Najee Harris, and Warren looks great, even to, as his backup, although he could be getting more and more work as he has been all year.
I think Warren actually outsnapped Harris in this game finally.
Yeah.
Or he got more carries. I don't know which one it was, but still looked better, of course, too, as he has all year. So
So the offensive coordinator, what's his name? Joe Canada or something? The players are calling him
Matt Canada.
Matt Canada. The players are calling him Matt America now because he's finally making the right decisions. Because he's giving Warren more.
I mean, the team's winning games, but I heard a stat yesterday where the Steelers in every single game this year have been outgained yardage-wise in every single game. So you can't. It's not like the offense is doing much. They just happen to be winning these games based on their defense. And Pickett's made a couple of good fourth quarter throws and drives, and so they're thinking the offense is turned around. But they every week they're getting outgained. Titans, doesn't matter who. The Browns, it doesn't matter. They're just getting outgained on offense every week.
Do you? So they're a bottom tier AFC playoff team. Can we agree on that?
That defense is still strong, but compared to the other playoff teams, if you're looking at it that way, I would say yes.
Right, they're between a 6 and 8 seed, right?
Yeah.
Do you think one of those top three teams want to play against Pittsburgh? I wouldn't, just because of what they do with playing against Mike Tomlin. He's going to scheme up something against you. I mean, that's just one of those teams that stays in the game, and they muck it up. They make it real ugly, real dirty. It's going to be very.
Yeah, and that defense is always capable of getting you some kind of touchdown, a fumble, sack fumble six, or a pick six. And that obviously supplements the offense there.
Yeah. So
I still think. I think their secondary is still pretty vulnerable. It's just they can't. Teams can't always take advantage of it because TJ Watt's just wreaking havoc. So, a team that has a good offensive line might not be so afraid of going up against them, just because they're. If you score pretty much against the Steelers, if you score 20, 23, 24, that's usually going to be enough to win.
Easily.
Easier than done, but I mean, their offense is just not good this year at all. There's really not anyone fantasy wise that you can rely on week after week. It's just, more playing the matchups and.
I think Warren made the case for being the number one RB. I hope he did this week. I had told that he was going to feast against the Packers defensive line because they can't stop the run. He did a great job there. Najee has played decent the last couple of weeks, but when you look at the two in comparison, they're just the juice isn't there for Najee. When Warren gets that ball in the open space, he's gone for at least 20 yards. So it's they have to be seen on the game tape as well when they're in their team meetings. So I would hope he's going to be carrying the ball sooner. But Cody, going back to your team with your wide receiver, you said that's a concern for you. You got Jackson Smith and Jigba, Drake London, Deontay, Nico Collins, Jacoby Myers. Who of those five are going to be the two you're going to kind of ride with and see, or is it going to be all matchup based, or do you have two that you're going to just kind of plug and stick with?
A lot of it is matchup based, but the guy I really like and enjoy watching him is Nico. He happened to be out this week. He was out late. When that started happening, then I knew it was going to be tough for me to actually get a dub this week. But Nico's going to be a steady person in the lineup. And as long as the matchup is okay, I'm going to keep Deontay in there just because he's a target monster. This was a weird matchup where, they were just running the ball, obviously, but I don't think too many more of those game plans are going to be coming up for them. A lot of the defenses they're going to end up playing later on in the year have strong run defenses. So I'm gonna kind of roll with Deontay and Nico, and then kind of mix in London or Myers, who's been good when the matchups are going to be favorable. I had to bench Myers because obviously playing that Jets defense, it wasn't going to look good, but none of my receivers really looked great. So I'm going to try and ride with Nico and ride with Deontay, and then hopefully my running backs, I feel good. Gibbs, if Kyron Williams comes back and that Rams offense and he's scoring touchdowns, getting all the goal line work for them and all the third down work. This team would look a lot better with Nick Chubb, let me tell you what. But unfortunately, his knee got blown out against the Steelers, and so I'm riding with what I got. But I still feel pretty good overall.
Right. No, I think that's right. I agree with you. Those are the two guys you got right at wide receiver. Nico was part of a great offense. Like we saw what Houston did again. The legend of CJ Stroud continues. The guy is unbelievable. Is he in MVP consideration right now? I know it's a little too early to talk about, but if you look at all the top quarterbacks across the league, is he like in the conversation now, potential MVP?
He's on the outskirts of the conversation. He's definitely rookie of the year, but for MVP, he's on the outskirts. You still have Purdy there. Tua's still been slinging it, I guess until he beats a team over 500 maybe. And then Mahomes doesn't really have weapons, and they just keep winning. So I would still put Stroud maybe 5th or 6th below a group of quarterbacks above that. And then you can even go McCaffrey or Tyreek, kind of even above Stroud if you want to.
I have Hurts, Allen, and then Dak. Those are my top 3. And real NFL. Yeah, Dak's been amazing.
He's just beating up on like these clowns. The Giants twice, you
still got to win those games.
Commanders again. Yeah, come on, no way.
If they start losing those games, like the Bills are, like you shouldn't be losing those games at home. The Cowboys are not. They're actually doing the opposite. They're destroying those teams, which they should be doing. Bills should be doing the same. But I mean, Jalen Hurts, all around, he's really been the guy carrying the torch. Mahomes, he's still in the top 5, but he hasn't had the season like he's had in the past. The defense has really been much better for them. So, his numbers aren't there. But yeah, CJ,
I think you got to look at the weapons he has as well around him.
Yeah.
He's still making it work with those guys, Rashee Rice and Justin Watson and company. They're running 3 tight end sets out there.
Yeah. So, talking about CJ Stroud, and Carlos has him. Carlos made a great waiver wire pickup midseason to get him, and he's had very good games. Carlos also has Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Carlos put a good 96 points this week. Again, I think he put up 90-plus points last week as well. Problem is Carlos has faced 2 teams that have put up monster scores against them. Javi was the weekly winner this week. He got that money. Javi put up 134. Talking about the aforementioned Dak, right? Putting up 42, best fantasy quarterback of the weekend. He was blazing on fire. Yes, it is against the Woolly Giants, who are just god awful right now. There's one of the worst teams it looks like honestly a college team playing in the NFL. It looks terrible. Yeah. It's not good. But he has that great stack of CD and Dak right now. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. That pair right now is blazing hot. Javi's going to put up 100 points again next week. I will bet money on that. It's going to be very easy for him to do that. So how are you guys feeling about Javi's team? Javi's got, pretty good matchups with, Washington coming up or Carolina coming up, right? We talked about Pollard having Carolina next week at Carolina. Aaron Jones isn't that great, but we're starting to see Jonathan Taylor come into form. He's got Scary Terry, who hasn't been that great, but he's got Kittle, who had a monster game. And again, that Cowboys defense. So how you guys feeling about Javi's team? I think I actually play him next week.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it, Cody said it several times, as the Cowboys go, so does his team. So, I mean, lately, obviously it's great,
going well.
CeeDee Lamb's had some monster games. So it's just, if they run into a team that can take out CeeDee Lamb effectively, then that's going to take Dak's production is going to take a hit too. They've got some other receivers like Cook's got involved this week too. But it's so hard to judge a team after they played the Giants, and like the Giants defense had to have just given up probably after the first quarter. I don't know at what point they gave up. You hate to think that a professional team would give up like that, but their offense, I don't know how many first
They're
downs
running
they
the
might have
third
had.
string quarterback out there. Well, I mean, they look across the line of scrimmage, and that's what they got down the other side.
Yeah, so it's I mean, Dak had a field day. I don't know. Dak was in the game way too long. Really, all their starters were in the game way too long for the most part. But
that deep ball he threw to Gallup was unnecessary for sure. I was like, wait, really? They're still throwing that deep balls like that? I was like, okay.
Yeah, was that Cooper Rush by that point, or I don't know.
No, that was Dak. Dak threw that deep ball.
Well, I think didn't Gallup have another? I don't know if it was a touchdown, but he had another deep pass that he caught like way late in the game when they were up by 40. So, but yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty strong all around. The Cowboys defense is still good and going to beat up on any of the weaker teams that they face, like the Giants, and the running backs look good. If Aaron Jones stays healthy, I don't know if he's even fully healthy yet. He's always a threat, but the Packers offense is not great. So, but I like his team better than my team. That's for sure. So.
Yeah, I mean, Javi's team's put up over 100 points, 2 weeks in a row. Last week, again, he put up over 100, lost to me, but he was the weekly winner this week, and I think he was saying once Jonathan Taylor comes back, his team's going to level up, and Jonathan Taylor hasn't really carried him or done much. It's just the Cowboys have gotten a favorable schedule in this time frame, and he's just crushing it with the scores just based on Dak and CD alone. And then, as Manny mentioned, they get Carolina next week, so I'm sure their defense is going to put up 20, 25 points. Even if Dak puts up another 25, CD will get another 20. There's already 75 points kind of between those three. So whoever Javi plays next week, if the rest of his team together can get together another, 30 points, he's gonna put up 105 to 110. Just based on that Panthers matchup with the Cowboys. We've talked about, like, Edgar's team has 2 Saints receivers. He's got 2 or 3 Raiders on his team. Javi, with the Cowboys, Tim mentioned it. As the Cowboys go, he goes. They got a good schedule. It's going well for them. You got to hope that they don't play anyone tough during those fantasy playoffs, because if Dak starts throwing those interceptions like he did against the Niners back in week 3, it can get really ugly for him. And, he's had those down weeks when the Cowboys kind of had that down week. So Saquon, with the third string quarterback, has no running room. Manny, you mentioned Aaron Jones hasn't looked great. Plus, he's in a timeshare still with A.J. Dillon, who's kind of looking like Eddie Lacy out there. So I don't know. His team, as the Cowboys go, Javi goes. And this week, they crushed it. So did Javi. Weekly winner. Congrats to Javi. Feel bad for Carlos. Bijan finally got some carries, put up 96 points, which is a lot in our league. There's usually a W, but it happens to someone every week. They put up 90 plus and end up just playing someone who gets 100 plus. And this week, that was Carlos.
Yep. It's exactly it. It's rough sledding for Carlos. He's going to be now 3-7. Definitely needs to.
Looking at Carlos' team, do you guys feel like it's a 3-7 team? Because I feel like his team should have a better record looking at the pieces he has.
100% it should have a better record. I think what's happened here is, and even his points against are not big. It's only 772, and that's actually in the mid-tier of points against when it comes as far as the season average. He's averaging under 100 points less than him against him, right? When you look aggregate that over the weeks that we've played, so he should be always in position to win. I think what really hurt his team was Bijan having such a slow start. Now Bijan has scored back-to-back weeks, finally rushing the ball, getting that. CJ, at the beginning of the year, he had Joe Burrow those first few weeks was not playing well, and now he's playing great.
He was the guy who got the Kamara. Kamara was out the first 4 weeks. 3 or 4 weeks.
Exactly. So Carlos, right? We talked about stacking those early wins. That first month of the season is so important, because as you get to this mid-season portion, you're gonna take 3 or 4 of those big losses, and if you can be able to stay above 500, you're in good shape. But as you already start in the negative, working your way back up is very, very difficult, because you got to rattle off so many wins in a row. And I think, taking those chances on those players while it was a good strategy, I think he took too many chances, right? Took chances on the Burrow being hurt. He took a chance on Kamara waiting until week 4 to come back. Amon-Ra got hurt early on in the season, and then he finally came back, right? Now he's back to form. So it's been tough. I think he's just been playing from behind the 8 ball this season. Do I think he can still make the playoffs? Sure. He's going to be 3-7, but if he rattles off the next 2 weeks of wins, next 3 weeks, he'll be fine. He'll get into the playoffs, and I definitely would want to see his team, but playing from behind the 8 ball was probably been the issue here.
Yeah, and with his first pick being Bijan too, like combined with some of those others, it just obviously was going to lead to a slow start. So, Bijan's definitely a great running back. Just he's just not in a good offense and hasn't been getting as much work as he deserved. So, but yeah, I still think his team looks like it should be better than 3-7. So, just he's had some bad luck the last couple of weeks, I think, especially this week. I think last week he played a pretty high score as well. So it's tough sledding.
Yeah. I mean, it's similar to my situation with Paula, right? Both our first round picks, but it hasn't hurt me as much because I had other players really filling that void. Kenneth Walker and other players. I had Mostert to start the season too, who was playing great early in the year, so I was able to get those extra points. His Bijan has given him 5 weeks of single-digit fantasy points. That's the issue there, right? And when you didn't have Kamara, and then when you were trying to figure out your quarterback situation, and those situations really hurt you. So, but I think he'll be fine, and looking at his matchup and looking at his teams for next week, he'll be okay. I don't see anything that's going to be slowing him down too much, and he'll be fine.
Well, he did give Andrew his first win last week, so that's problematic. You got to win those easy ones,
That was a tough one, I'm sure. I still haven't heard anything about it. Waiting for Carlos to say, "Fuck off, Manny," but
well, he's got a big matchup with Ricky. They're both kind of fighting for that last 7-8 seed playoff position. If Ricky ends up winning that game, it could really put the nail in Carlos's coffin, because being down, he'll be about 2 games out of that playoff spot with only 3 games to go after next week. If Carlos loses, this could be Carlos's season coming up in that matchup versus Ricky. So it'll be an interesting one. That'll be one I'll be watching closely.
Yeah. It really annoys the hell out of me that one of Carlos's wins against me because of stupid DJ Moore and having his stupid career game against me on Thursday Night Football. But much ado about that. But moving on, to Andrew and Ricky, talking about Ricky. Again, we were told we were going to see a murder, right? Michael Scott wanted to play, there's been a murder game, but we didn't get to see it come to fruition.
Breaking news: Ricky is still alive, very much alive. I texted him and he's fine. He has not been murdered.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear it. He's going to be home soon, so I'm sure he's excited to, let us know about his heartbeat still going and his vitals are still normal. Great, good for to hear that. But Andrew went from was it 1% making the playoffs, I think, up all the way up to 3% making the playoffs after that victory.
Tripled his playoff percentage.
Yep, it tripled his playoff percentage, and I think it's back down to 0. So
I think after this week it would have to be.
Yeah. So Andrew, it was a great season. Good job. Remember, I told you now, try to focus on getting that first win in week 15. We'll get that first week win in the loser bowl, and you're fine. No barbecue. But if we're all being realistic here, you told us you got that great butcher. We're all rooting, for you to visit the butcher. Let's be real.
Especially for the new first timer in the league. Come on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a great way to welcome you to the league, and it's going to be great seeing the license plate on his car, and I'm going to drive by his house every weekend just to make sure it's there. It's going to be great. But his team, it wasn't terrible, right? Baker 16, Austin Eckler 16, Najee 15. But he did play the Jahan Dotson, right? He was riding that Jahan Dotson high wave after we talked about Sam Howell being really, really good so far, right? Sam's been great the last few weeks, top 5 quarterback last few weeks. And he made Jahan Dotson look great last week. As someone that I drafted, I got mad because I've seen him finally producing late in the season. Well, he throws up the dreaded goose egg, goose egg. That when you get a goose from a player, it's just the worst. It's so demoralizing, and that was probably the end of that. While Ricky's team, consistent double digits across the board. Joe Burrow, again, that Joe Burrow pickup's going to be money for him. He's still riding that Deontay Foreman train, Tim. He's riding that Foreman. Whoop, whoop. But he's
also riding that trade, Manny. How do you feel about that trade looking back now? You probably made it thinking Mostert would get hurt, maybe Mike Evans would get hurt, or his performance would fall up. Evans this week got him 22. Mostert is on a bye, but he's been doing great for him lately. In retrospect, how do you feel about that trade with Ricky?
Evans did get hurt. Let's not forget that he did get hurt. I was like, oh, it happened, and even people were making the comment like, oh, doing the Homer Simpson meme of Manny looking at the trade and backing up into the bushes, the famous Homer hiding away meme. But no, he came back next week and he balled out, and Evans has been great. I'm happy for Ricky. It's worked out well for him. Boster's been great for him. Evans has been great for him. I feel like we had the players we swapped have helped both our teams. I've had Joe Mixon again, as I said. Joe Mixon has consistently put up 10 plus points for me over the last few weeks, and I'm very happy about that. I will take that production. Cooper's actually been very good too. Very, very consistent across the board. So has Evans and Mostert been getting better production? Yes, of course. Yeah. But I am happy that it worked out for both teams. I'm still happy with the players that I have going into this stretch. But Ricky has made a good job. Done a good job of setting his team up. And, the trade he just made with the Angels too, Brian Robinson, big score this week, 25 points. How many points did Tennessee running back Derrick Henry have this week?
Derrick Henry for Angel, it looks like he had 2 in that tough matchup. But Tampa Bay is a really good, strong run defense.
2 points is 2 points.
And Brian Robinson had a 60-yard touchdown catch, I think, which, I mean, he's been catching more passes this year than last year. But, I mean, I think all of Sam Howell's points, I think, pretty much went to running backs this week. I think Antonio Gibson caught a touchdown as well.
Yep, I got Antonio Gibson on the bench. I've been watching those Commander games. I'm like, hey, Gibson's getting some work. I'm going to take a flyer, pick him up, see what happens. Gibson's put up 14 points this week too. So, yeah, the running backs are, they're always playing from behind, which I love. So, hey, they're going to dump the ball off, and both those guys are pretty explosive, right? When Gibson gets the ball in the open space, he can take it to the house, and we've seen that. But it looks like Brian Robinson could do the same too. So, good for Ricky. Yeah, he's Debo's back for Ricky, and that's great. And he took that He took that dart throw on Cole Kmet, right? On Cole Kmet. And he's living high off the hog with 5 points. That's like might as well 30 points for a wide receiver. 5 points from Cole Kmet. Good for him.
Might as well go buy a lottery ticket. He just picked Kmet up and got 5 points from a tight end you picked up. I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Guys had multiple zeros this year. Yeah. Yeah, I would know. Believe me.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, Ricky's got to be feeling good about his team. He even texted me saying he has a quote for the podcast. It looks like it's directed to Andrew. Ricky's quote is, "Andrew, even with my shitty season, I still beat your ass." So he's happy he didn't get murdered. He wants to rub it in Andrew's face a little bit. If not for Javi, Ricky would have been the weekly winner and get the money this week. Andrew thought he was going to kind of go on a roll here. Clearly didn't. But yeah, Ricky's got to be feeling good about where his team's at right now, especially with those trades, as you mentioned.
Yeah, Ricky might have one of the best wide receiving core groups in the league right now with Metcalf, Debo, and Evans. That's pretty stout. Pretty stout. So let's help Ricky out here. He's got Joe Burrow and Brock Purdy. Is it matchup based that you pick to start, or is it a set it and forget it situation with one of the two? How do you guys play that?
Oh, matchups. You got to go, especially with that position. You got to look at matchups 100%. Especially with Burrow, he's in that tough division against the Steelers, Browns, and Ravens. Those are all 3 tough defenses, especially against the Browns. They're number 1, number 2 defense on the year. I think if he's playing them, you just kind of roll out Purdy, unless he's got a tough matchup as well. If they both have mediocre to favorable matchups, I would lean Burrow just because how much more pass heavy they are. What do you think, Tim?
Well, I mean the Browns have had Burrow's number, I think, since he's been in the league. So I think they already played him. They played him early this year and got destroyed by him. if I remember right. I think it was week 1 or 2, maybe.
Week 1 hurt.
Yeah. So obviously they're going to play him one more time. I don't know when, but yeah, against the Browns, I wouldn't necessarily trust him. I don't know about the other teams. He's had good games against the Ravens, I feel like, here and there, and probably the Steelers too. But it is definitely a tough division, so it's hard to say. But Purdy had a great game this week. When he's he got Trent Williams back, he got Debo back. So when the offense is healthy for Purdy, he's obviously much better. I think the reason he had some down weeks had a lot to do with Debo and Williams being out.
Yeah.
So as long as they're healthy, Kittle, McCaffrey, he's got a pretty safe floor, I would say, unless he's playing a really tough defense. So yeah, definitely matchup based. Probably Burrow more often, just because it's Joe Burrow and he looks healthy now. But Purdy should have some pretty. I mean, what did he have? 3 touchdowns this week? Did he have over 300 yards or close to?
296. 296.
Okay, and he had 2 touchdowns, I believe.
3 touchdowns. Yep. 1 to Debo, 1 to Ayuk, 1 to Kittle. Yeah, all 3 playmakers.
Yeah.
And he tried to get that 4th one to McCaffrey at the end of the game. They tried to get
that. Look, I understand, like, it's a cool streak to keep going, but you don't need to risk McCaffrey getting hurt at the end of a blowout. So he can imagine if McCaffrey did get hurt,
like a twisted knee or something right there.
Yeah, season-ending injury in a 37-3 game, just so he could get keep a touchdown streak going. Like, you need him in the playoffs. You don't need him to keep his touchdown streak going. So I thought that was kind of Staley-esque right there. But no, nothing against Shanahan's a great coach. I wish the Chargers had a coach like him, but that was, I don't know. I didn't think that was smart. So
okay, yeah. Oh, go ahead, Manny.
I didn't like it in the moment. We're gonna let Cody talk about his feelings on it. I was like, do you really want to risk your dude? You're crushing it out here. I found it funny that McCaffrey kind of laughed it off after the post-game interview. He was kind of like, I suck. The rest of my team scored except me. He was pretty funny about it. But yeah, I mean, that would have been disastrous if something would have happened. So I don't know. I'm not going to question, a coach like that. He's great. Shanahan is outstanding, but I just didn't like it personally because of the prospects of what they could be in the postseason. What about you, Cody?
Yeah, it's tough because you want to be a player's coach, and obviously breaking a record like that, you would think it would stand for. I mean, the record that he tied last week has been, I think, since the 70s. So you would think this record, if he breaks it, would stand for at least 30 to 40 years. So he would just solidly be chiseled into the record book. So as a player's coach, what Shanahan is, you kind of see it as an offensive guy as well, wanting to let it happen. It is questionable looking back on it. I mean, there were opportunities in the first and second quarter to just kind of get it done ahead of time. I don't know. I have mixed feelings on it just because as a running back in the NFL, it could be the first quarter and you can get hurt. So you can get hurt on any play. So sure, he's out there in a blowout, but it wasn't, it wasn't like a Dayball thing where he has Daniel Jones in there when they're down 40 points, just, not going for anything. There was something they were playing for kind of outside of that game. So I'm a little more understanding of it. I know a lot of people on 49ers Twitter were kind of freaking out, but I don't know. I'm a little more understanding about it. I mean, same thing with baseball. Like, let guys get the no-hitter, let them go for the perfect game. There's times where people get taken out in the 7th inning because they're at 95 pitches. Just let him keep going. It kind of felt like that for me. Like, let him break the record, let him have it, and he'll be in the history books for a long time. And I don't know. It's kind of how I felt.
He's still there, but yeah, no, I like that analogy, right? 95 pitches and pull him after 7. Great analogy there. So, I think it was against Jacksonville too, right? And Jacksonville has been a great team over the last month and a half of the season, and I think they really wanted to make a statement, coming off a bye, wanted to make a statement that, hey, we're back. Yeah, we've lost 3 straight games. We're gonna let you know that. Cody's puffing his chest out there for the people that can't see, but they really wanted to let the NFL world know, like, hey, we're healthy again, and stop. All the chatter needs to stop, and they did a good job of that. So, going back to the quarterback situation, you got Brock against Tampa Bay next week, and you got Burrow against the Ravens in Baltimore. So now, knowing those parameters, right? And Niners are at home against Tampa Bay. I'm starting Brock.
I'm going Purdy. Yeah, I'm with you there. Just because of Tampa Bay's, they have a strong run defense, but that pass defense can get beat quite easily.
I'll get shredded.
Yeah. Tim, where are you leaning?
I mean that's the better matchup. Obviously, my concern would be, and I guess this week there it was a blowout too, and he still put up big numbers. But will Tampa Bay be able to even be in that game at all against that defense? But I guess if they can't run the ball, they'll probably just keep throwing it. I mean, they threw it a lot this week, so probably the safer matchup. I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty sure that Burrow's had some success. I mean, I think Burrow's best career game was against the Ravens, not last year, but the year before. Yeah, I mean, he just, I think their defensive coordinator said something, kind of, I don't know if derogatory is the right word, but he said something about Burrow that pissed him off, and then Burrow lit him up for like almost 500 yards and 5 touchdowns, I think. So, I don't know. It's that's the game I could see turning into more of a shootout.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a tough call. I don't know. I guess gun to my head, I would go Burrow, but it's not like a strong lean. So,
Ricky, there you have it. You got 2 good options at quarterback. So ride one and be happy with it. What I like about the Niners Tampa Bay matchup in San Francisco, again, we talked about Baker before having a pretty good season so far, much better than we anticipated. He's going to have to throw the ball a lot. And, when we get to Rob's game, right, Rob's Rashad White pick is looking incredible, just like his Monty pick. We all look like fools for letting both those guys drop to the 5th and 6th round. And Rob's riding those 2 number 1 RBs and just laughing himself to more wins over and over again. But Rashad White's looking amazing. I don't know if you guys saw the couple catches he made out of the backfield and just taken to the house. I mean, guy's got a lot of juice right now. Maybe he can't run the ball well, but he's one of the best pass catching backs in the league. So I think Baker has a lot of weapons: Godwin, Evans, and Rashad White. So
and I mean, it's
nobody else. Go ahead.
I was saying it's unfortunate Andrew kind of had to, start Baker because he had Kirk Cousins. And so, before the Achilles tear, Kirk Cousins was a top 5 quarterback in our league. But then once that happens, he had to kind of adapt and adjust and go with Baker. And, that as a fantasy quarterback, when you're already 0-8, 0-7 to start and now 1-8, having to lose your quarterback and go with Baker Mayfield isn't really a great feeling. But he's got weapons, so that there's always the chance that he can kind of have Mike Evans get 50-yard touchdown, Godwin a 40-yarder, and kind of that'll supplement his fantasy day. And as Vanny was saying, check down to White. White can kind of do some work after the catch there.
Yeah, I think this week could be tough for him though. So I don't know.
He does have Stafford as well, I think.
What's that?
He does have Stafford as well, besides Baker, that he can kind of swap in.
Oh yeah, he got Stafford back. Yeah, it's going to be tough sledding for Baker, I think, this week. And Rashad White is, he's dominating that backfield. Nobody.
Yeah.
They've had
no one's challenging that. Yeah.
Different backup running backs shuffling in and out of the lineups that just don't even see the field. And he's definitely kind of like, I mean, I don't want to say he's like Eckler because they're totally different, but he's definitely been better lately receiving. He's running for maybe 2 or 3 yards a carry for the most part, but he's catching a lot of passes. And so that's, I have Rashad White on in my other league and kind of didn't really like taking him at the time, but it doesn't seem so bad now.
It doesn't feel so bad now, right? Yeah, it feels probably better than much expected. I mean, so he's got a quarterback decision. You said Stafford's coming back, Cody. Rams already did say he's expected to be in lineup to play this week. So you got Baker against San Francisco in San Francisco, or you got Stafford against Green Bay in Green Bay. I'm starting Stafford.
Not even a question. Look at Lawrence in this league put up. Sacks in this league are -1. Lawrence, has been okay this year. Got a -4. You're going to put Baker out there against that defense? I don't think so. I don't see it. You got to go with Stafford.
Yeah, Baker didn't do much. He didn't have to do much against Tennessee this week, but he still didn't have that great of a game. And the 49ers defensive line is a little bit now that they got Chase Young. It's like I didn't even really see much of the game, but it just seems like it's not really fair that they added him to an already stout defense. So it's going to be tough to really start anyone against San Francisco in fantasy football this year. So
as
long as they're healthy. Yeah. So we helped Ricky out kind of with his matchup, quarterback matchup going forward. Looking at Andrew and his team, you guys talked. It looks like he's the first one eliminated from the playoffs. How do you guys approach the rest of the season from here? Like Manny's been saying, you just play for that week 15. Do you try and make trades and line up week 15, or are you kind of still sticking with what you have, thinking that Eckler plus Kupp, plus maybe Harris, if he gets a little more work, is going to be fine? Are you making trades? How are you guys approaching the year if you're in Andrew's position from here?
Great question.
I'm just riding. I would just ride. He's been riding the same players all year, basically. He ran into some bad luck with Eckler, and then kind of knew what he was getting into with Kupp, but still, it's really not a bad looking team, on paper. So I don't think there's anything making a trade. I don't know what he would try to fill, what spot. He's got a great wide receiver, one of the best in the game, who just hasn't really had that great of a year so far, and then one of the best running backs in the game who just scores a lot of touchdowns. So I think just stick with it. And then, like I said last week, I'm going to be disappointed if he doesn't have the Commanders defense in his lineup week 15. So he still got him.
I think you have to just, if you're Andrew, you got to take this season as a learning experience. Ride this team, see what you got, figure out how other people play, right? It's important. Cody, you do a good job of that. When we do drafts for other leagues and drafts for this league, you're always taking notes on who drafts when and what position they'd like to draft at. You do a good job of that. So Andrew needs to do the same thing. He needs to kind of see, finish out the season, look at how everybody else is starting, look at the matchups, kind of grow from this and do his best to understand what's the cadence of how people kind of operate their teams and operate this league. This is more trades this year than we've seen in the past. So typically we're more stingy with it because people are very much about hoarding, right? But you look at his scores. He's put up the last 3 weeks, 112 points, 93 points, 81 points. So he's really put up respectable scores.
Kind of on the decline,
but it's not like putting up those 50s and 60s like we've been seeing in some of these, right? So, and he's done a good job. So I would say you just got to kind of ride it out and build this team, because you don't want to, if he's at longest he's in that 9th spot or that 10th spot, if you're not right, he'll give a better opportunity to play someone else who's not as strong as him in that first round. So I think you should still try to stack those wins if I was him.
Yeah, just as cheaply as possible too. I mean, like obviously, you can still go for weekly high scores, but there's probably not much point in spending any fab for players or trades cost $5. So I guess if anything, that might be the better way to
approach it.
Fill or to improve your team rather than spend any fab, but.
On the other side, that spending that fab could keep you away from getting that last place spot. Like, sure, you're in, but if it's someone who's kind of going to be more than like a 1 or 2 week fill in, then I could see him kind of making a play for someone that can start on his team.
It has to be like a starting RB that goes down, and then on a good team, and then the backup, obviously, blowing your wad on that. Fab on that wad and trying to get that player, of course.
Yeah, that can save him from being the carne man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So and we've talked about the quarterback situation, decisions he'd make to start Stafford. Let's look at another matchup between Alex, right? His team's back to form with 125. Would have been the top scorer of the weekend with for Javi's great stack with Dak and CD, but Angel, right? We're gonna talk about the panic meter, and Angel's definitely on the candidate of the panic meter. Only put up 69 this week. He's got Lamar Jackson.
Nice.
Lamar, yeah, 69. Lamar has been so great for like real football, but for fantasy, so volatile. The last 3 weeks, 8, 10, and 11 respectively over the last 3 weeks. If you're the Lamar manager, are you hitting the panic button? And on his bench, he just got him, and I think he's got a hard decision to make here. It's Dobbs, right? Joshua Dobbs. Joshua Dobbs. We talked about the legendary game last week, coming in with no practice, no help, no nothing, not even knowing his offensive lineman's name. 25-point performance again this week. 268 yards, 2 touchdowns. He ran for another one. He looked great. I mean, I watched the game. I was like, oh, man, the Vikings actually might be right where they needed to be when Kirk Cousins was playing at the top of his game. So he's got a decision to make. Where do you guys go from here? Again, is it matchup-based? Is it Lamar, you just kind of like give, because now he's got 2 quarterbacks who can run and make plays with their feet. But who do you have more confidence in?
Man, that's tough because the Ravens have been so run heavy. And Lamar's he's kind of low key, secretly not running as much as he used to in this new offense. It's a new coordinator, and he's got great receiving weapons, or at least better receiving weapons than he has in years past. Man, with what Dobbs is doing, especially once Justin Jefferson comes back and he has that Jefferson Dobbs stack, I would play Dobbs more so than Lamar, which is tough to do, unless obviously it's a super tough matchup. But I would lean Dobbs the way he's leaving it all out there. He's getting the rush yards, and he's throwing to Addison and Osborne and Hawkinson, and he's making it work.
I mean, and just looking at their schedule, like, it's hard to disagree. It's like unfathomable to say, like, I don't even know what universe I'm in right now, saying Josh Dobbs over Lamar Jackson. But
the hard question, yeah, it's crazy.
Like, they play Chicago this week, or next week, I guess. They play Denver, who's a little bit better lately on defense, but I still,
but still, even Josh Allen scored a running touchdown on them today, and
Chicago. Then they got their bye. Then they got the Raiders, and then Bengals, Lions, and Packers. So, and they have a relatively easy schedule.
Yeah.
They don't have a running game. I have the running back for the Vikings, so I would know. They have no running game. Now they might, because they have a running quarterback. So I just think, based on, like, they scored around the same amount of points this year too, at least per game average, both in the 15s. It's crazy, but I mean, Dobbs has played on 2 different teams. He came in last week without knowing the playbook and put up more points than Lamar as far as fantasy, and this week again. So with Jefferson back, he's got Hawkinson, who he peppered this week with targets. Addison, that's pretty good weapons to throw to, and he's going to be the only one probably running it for the most part, at least effectively. So I think more often than not, he'll be the good start. I don't think he can go wrong.
Yeah. Josh Dobbs has 151 points on the season. Lamar Jackson has 159. And
there we go.
To put that in perspective, look at the weapons Lamar has had around him since the start of the season. Odell, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. Really, really good talent. Aguilar, who really can't catch the ball, so we'll keep him out of it. Bateman.
A little bit of Bateman, yeah.
Yeah. Who was Joshua Dobbs throwing the ball to in the first 6 weeks of the season?
Hollywood Brown, and a bit of James Conner before he got hurt.
Yeah, I mean, the talent matchup.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. He's played on 2 different teams this year, and he's still, even getting traded and having to start unexpectedly, or not start, but play most of last week's game, still producing. So it's pretty amazing. But Yeah, it's I just don't think if you got Lamar again, he's in the AFC North against some of those tougher defenses. It's not crazy to start Dobbs over him, especially when Jefferson's back.
So that was probably a smart move by Angel then. I mean, he's on this big slide, but having Lamar, you would think you don't want, especially in this league with the short bench, you don't want to have to hold and carry a second QB, but that could be a move that really helps him squeak into the playoffs there. And if he can play the matchups right, he can maybe make a bit of a run once Justin Jefferson comes back. So that was a smart move by Angel.
Yep. Now, where I do worry about Angel's team, and we're trying to press this panic button meter, is his running back situation. So he traded for Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had that basically goose, right? 2 points for Derrick Henry is basically a 0. But James Cook, even though he did have 100 yards tonight, he had a massive fumble early in the game. So when your running back starts -3 to start the game, it's like already like, oh my God, wolf. And then they benched him for almost the first half of the game, which was kind of right. He was in the doghouse. So James Cook, a little bit of panic meter there, especially with Latavius Murray getting those goal line touches and taking touchdown away from him. So definitely some worry there for Angel when it comes to the running back position. So,
the frustrating part watching that game is there was the one drive where they started actually giving Cook the ball there in the fourth quarter. And by himself, he took it 70 yards and got him within the red zone just immediately after about 6 plays, just by himself. They took it out of Allen's hands, started handing him the ball, and they just moved right down the field. He did have the fumble that bounced right back up into his hand. So I don't know how much benching him really taught him a lesson, but when they started giving him the ball, he got to the red zone, within 5-6 plays there in the fourth quarter when it mattered the most.
Yeah, he looks good for the most part. He just when you start fumbling though as a running back, there's so many coaches in the league that would just punish you for it, and he looked great on that last drive, but then fumbling it to himself, he got kind of lucky that it bounced right to him. Otherwise,
while still in stride.
I know, and he still kept running like that. I haven't seen something like that in a while, but I don't know how much they're going to trust him going forward, especially they can't have Josh Allen and their starting running back turning the ball over left and right. So
exactly. Allen's
they'll live with it.
One guy,
yeah, they'll live with it if it's Allen because he's capable of making up for it. And but I mean that the way the game started out was pretty much foretelling of how the entire game was going to go. It's just that fumble on the very first play. It was all sloppy from there. So definitely not good, especially for an undersized running back who's never been getting the goal line carries. He's even less likely probably to carry it anywhere near the goal line now. So,
they've been using Latavius a lot.
Yeah.
Who was the Giants running back back in the early 2000s? Barber, right? Barber, remember under Tom Coughlin had those fumbling issues. And then what did Coughlin make him do? He made him do that crazy maneuver. So when he started running the ball, he had the ball like super high and he looked all crazy. And maybe Cook's going to have to take some of the Tiki Barber running style, because he's holding that ball a little too low. Yeah. It looked funny, but I mean, it really helped his fumbling woes because they ended up getting a great running back. He ended up having a great career with the Giants post that. But I remember that first couple of years was rough for him because he was fumbling the ball too much. So.
And I don't agree with I think it's stupid when coaches punish guys for fumbling. I think it just sends the wrong message. Like, it shows a lack of confidence in them. And once their confidence gets down, I think they're more likely to fumble it even more. Like I remember when Kareem Hunt's first year, I think he fumbled on his first touch or something, and like he didn't get benched. He ended up having a monster game. Because Andy Reid was like, rather than punish him for it, he was like, no, I'm going to give you the ball more, and you're going to make up for it. Like that's more the message that it sends, I think, when you keep feeding him rather than punish him. I don't know. I think it's silly. I don't think it works, but I'm not
still more confident in them.
Coach. Yeah, you don't want to crush their spirit, especially a young running back like that. So
they didn't work tonight because they threw a couple picks subsequent to that and put themselves in a bigger hole. If they would have just ran again with them back on that second drive, maybe pushed the ball up and gotten Denver on their heels a little bit instead of thrown a couple more turnovers, it could have been a much different outcome. So,
Yeah,
we'll talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, no, Angels running backs are kind of in trouble, like we were mentioning with Cook. Murray's getting a lot of work that Cook would get at the goal line. They have Fournette on their practice squad ready to call up at any moment. Derrick Henry, kind of on the down low, has been getting out snapped by Spears in some of these games, especially when they fall behind. Spears has been getting more snaps than him. This week ended up, with more fantasy points. I think it was 6-2. But looking forward, it doesn't look great for that Henry trade that he made. So Ricky might have kind of tossed him a ticking time bomb. His receivers, of course, once Jefferson comes back, and Puka's on a bye, so he'll get Puka back as well. We'll be looking good. But in this league, running backs are so important, and that's the weak point of his team. And you can really see this 5 or 6 game slide, whatever it is he's on. I think it's 6 now.
It's about to be 6. Yep.
Yeah. If Lamar's not kind of doing the work to carry him, those running backs are really going to be hurting him in the future as it keeps going on.
Yep. We won't talk about Alex's team. We all know the algorithm put a good team together, so good for him.
There we go.
Yeah, his best outcome. Yeah, fair enough. Exactly. We'll talk about the legend that keeps growing with Rob Benitez and the team that I love. Big Kahuna. My goodness. I mean, I don't even know where to start. So he just basically says, my quarterback's on bye. Nah, I'm not going to really spend any fab or make a move. But also his number 1 draft pick, tight end, and number 1 pick is on a bye as well. I'm not going to make a move either. He just says, F it, I'll take the L. Well, it puts up 75 points with the rest of his players, right? Without missing his top 2 producers. And we talked about Rachaad White having a big game. He got a big game.
Brown?
AJ Brown. Oh, yeah, that's right. AJ Brown was sitting on the because of the bye week. So he started Christian Kirk and Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen has kind of taken a little regression back, right? He was hot for that first in a month and a half of the season, but we seen him come back down to earth a little bit. But Monty coming back into the fold, breaking off 75-yard scampers. It's incredible, right? Like Rob just getting these big take it to the house moments. That is, without that play, Rob doesn't win. You really think about it. Yeah. So it's incredible. He's going up
against. He also has
Jamar
Warren too on his bench. He's could be the beneficiary of that situation.
Yeah. Warren and Gus Bus, right? So he's got 2 backs there that are emerging. Well, Gus has been emerging, but Warren might be the emerging one. So he's got some options there instead of James Conner. And Rob's team is very, very formidable. I think he's gonna go at max 2 losses into the postseason, and he'll be right in that first. We'll see who plays as the 8th seed. It'll be interesting. I don't think it'll be Alex or one of us. So it'll be Romo or Ricky or Angel situation. So we'll see. But Romo starting Trevor Lawrence. -4. Ouch. Rough. Jags defense. Ouch.
-2. He's got 2 players you talked about goose egg. I mean, Romo's got 2 guys getting less than the goose egg. That's even worse. He would have benefited from a goose egg, especially at the QB position. It doesn't get much worse than that. That's usually where a bulk of your points come from.
So, Sam Howell's on his bench. He starts Sam Howell. It's an easy win for him. Unfortunate. So, in that scenario, right, he started Trevor Lawrence basically coming off the bye, thinking that they're going to have a good game plan in place. He sees Sam Howell on the road in Seattle. I think I make the same decision he made. I can't knock him for that. It's just unfortunate that it happened that way. The Niners just looked incredible with that new defensive line. So, crappy situation for him. His panic level. So if we say Angel's panic meter is it an all-time high? Let's give it 3 grades. Somewhat panic. I'm panicked, definitely panicked, or oh shit, we're in trouble. Where's
Angel's
Romo
definitely in red alert. Oh, we're going Romo. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Angel's in the oh shit. Yeah, we've already established it. Yeah, but because the running back. Where's Romo at? Because I think the running back's still good. Didn't produce this week, but where's he at? Because he can't really sustain any more losses like this. Being about to be 4-6.
I would put him in that mid-tier. He's still kind of on the cusp of making the playoffs, missing the playoffs, so he's still mid-tier. if he does make the playoffs, he'll be playing a 1 or a 2 seed, it looks like. So he's definitely not panicked. He's definitely got to be feeling the pressure. So I'd put him in that mid tier, below Angel, definitely looking at his team. What about you, Tim?
Yeah, somewhere between, low panic to medium, definitely not, extreme panic, because he's still got a good team. Just, didn't start the right quarterback this week. Otherwise, he's got, I think, Breece Hall's game had to be disappointing too against the Raiders. Not really doing anything there.
Big time.
But, having ETN, Breece Hall, Javonte Williams, who scored a touchdown today. I don't know if he didn't start him either. I don't think so.
Nope.
But and then
he's
Jamar
also got
Chase,
the breakout tight end as well in McBride.
Yeah, Jamar Chase, Tank Dell. I mean, he's not a major weakness there. I mean, it's just it might be tough to decide which quarterback to start on a given week. But otherwise, I don't see him, putting together a losing streak to end the season here. I'd be pretty surprised. So, yeah, low level panic.
Yeah, I'm with you. Low level panic. Not even. I'd put at the lowest tier, like just a little bit. But as far as quarterback goes, it's no question for me. It's Sam Howell. You're looking at Giants next game, Dallas after that, Miami after that. All games.
The game script is
that Dallas one could be tough.
Yeah, Dallas.
He's going to be have to throw. He's going to be throwing the ball a lot. I mean, it could be a high.
To which team? To which team is he going to be throwing the ball there?
I mean,
more often than not, though, he's going to be playing from behind. He's going to have to throw it
most likely.
So, right. And he's got weapons. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think that over the next 3 weeks, to answer Sam Howell, I mean, compared to Trevor Lawrence, Tennessee, Houston, Cincinnati. Again,
and then Cleveland, Baltimore after that.
Yeah. I think Cleveland, Baltimore is probably where you start Trevor Lawrence, but next 3 weeks I'd still start Sam Howell for sure, just based off of the matchups and what's happening there. So, yeah, Romo's got a great team. Javonte Williams, he's got to start starting him. He's had great double-digit fantasy points over the last couple games. Breece Hall sent him disappointing week. But we all expect a lot more out of him, especially when I played him in DFS for the Sunday night game. I expected him to be one of my guys to carry me. Didn't carry me. He was my captain actually for the weekend. Didn't happen. So unfortunate there. But yeah, Rob will still keep stacking those wins, and I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to make a deep run into the postseason. So we'll see. Just because of getting that favorable seed. So good job, Rob. Keep it going.
Last match, I got the inside track to be the number 1 seed going into the playoffs now. With we were tied. I lost. He won. He's got a game lead now for first seed. So that's what it looks like.
I'll be right back.
Do you guys have a matchup coming up, Cody, between you and Rob?
No, I believe we had already played, and I had beaten him when he had come on the podcast, and so we don't play twice this year.
Okay.
So we had our matchup. I already laid the smackdown, gave him his only loss. No one else in the league can seem to do it. But I was happy to oblige and give him his L. Hopefully I meet him in the playoffs and could give him his second one.
Well, yeah, that would be fantastic. Let's hope that comes to fruition. But I don't think I have another matchup against him. So I got Javi this week, then Alex, and then I have 2 easy games against Edgar and Romo, so not too bad.
Okay. So it looks like you could at least go 500, in those games. Yeah. I mean, we have a big cluster as we've been talking about the past couple of weeks at that bottom. From our 6 seed down to even our 11 seed now. Everyone's clustered up within 1 to 2 games of each other. So I'm kind of disappointed in Romo here. He's the one I invited to the league, so I still feel like he's a little bit under my wing. He's an ex-champion already a couple of years ago, which I'm proud of, but in a game where the guy is benching his quarterback and his number 1 pick tight end, this is a week you got to win, especially if you're fighting for a playoff spot. So I am a bit disappointed in Romo that he couldn't come away with a victory against a guy who just didn't. Rob was asking him to take the W, and he couldn't do it. So I'm a bit disappointed in Romo here, and it's not looking great for him, especially with Ricky on the ascending. He's he's lucky Angel's kind of on the defense, so he can kind of fit right in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Which leads us into our last matchup with our couple panic meter participants that we're going to talk about here. Mahawk Timmy versus OJ Assassins Edgar, right? Our previous champion versus. So Tim, rough performance there. I'm going to have to ask why the no need for the defense was necessary. You just felt like it wasn't necessary, or what was going on there? What was the decision for the?
Yeah, don't even have one on the roster.
Yeah.
Name a defense you liked this week that was on the waiver wire.
Valid point.
I mean,
that's
the only answer I have. The highest scoring defense on waivers was Carolina. So, and I guess you could make an argument that they got 13 points. Wouldn't have helped. I mean, I even looked. There's really no combination. If I had picked up Carolina's defense, if I picked up Geno Smith and started him over Will Levis, which I considered doing, and then if I started Kareem Hunt over one of the other running backs I started because he got a short touchdown, then I think I would have won. Other than that, maybe making a trade. Those are the only ways I would have won this week, just because my running backs are awful. My highest scoring, I got two guys that scored 12. One of them touched the ball 4 times. So it's not ideal to have one of your highest scoring players touch the ball 4 times only as a running back.
Keaton, that Ravens, man, they do the same thing over and over again. I hear you.
Yeah, maybe they would have won that game if they gave him the ball a little bit more. But what are you gonna do? So, but yeah, it was just kind of I just didn't really know what to do this week. I got lucky last week to win. I've gotten lucky so far to just be 5-5 this year. I've had a couple high scores and a whole bunch of other just crap. So it's just it's kind of a frustrating year. I could trade Diggs or Hill, but then I don't have a good second wide receiver that I can rely on at all. So it's just not having a whole lot of fun with my team this year. I'm excited to get Achane back. I hope Keaton Mitchell gets some more work. I hope Justin Fields comes back, even though he's not the greatest quarterback. He's still capable of putting up big games. I've had to play quarterback carousel the last few weeks, and I've not played it very well. So it's
a tough carousel to be on, though.
Yeah.
So then, where's your panic meter sitting at out of those 3 that Manny created? Where's your panic sitting at?
Medium, I would say. Just because I don't know what's gonna. Like Achane looked great. I hope he can stay healthy. If he does, I guess we'll see how he does this week against the Raiders. I mean, if he can put up some big games for me, and then if Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs didn't do much tonight, which was kind of disappointing. But the Broncos do have a pretty good corner in Surtain, so I'm not super surprised about that. But if those 3, and then Kincaid's been great as well.
It's been money.
I hope they can carry my team, but it's just. Yeah, it's a lot up in the air right now, but I've got some guys that I'm definitely dropping this week. I'll be playing a defense this week, I'm sure. But
I know. So you're definitely doing the streaming defense thing, and you're out of those options that were available to you, not great. The running back situation, I believe you'll be in good shape when Achane comes back, but or Chan, but it'd be interesting, right? Because they're definitely utilizing all of them now. Mostert, Jeff Wilson, I saw him score recently. Savon Ahmed is in the mix too, but so I'm hoping that they don't go crazy and do the whole Baltimore Ravens thing, and that's what's rough about this. And Keaton Mitchell still look good, even in limited work. And if that's the game plan for Miami to give Achane 5 to 9 touches a game, it's gonna suck. I hope that's not the case. We'll see. Edgar's team again, really reliant on those Raiders and Saints. Olave's starting to pick it up little by little. The best thing for Olave was Derek Carr going down. I mean, Olave had 0 points at halftime, and here comes the savior.
I thought I was the only one that noticed.
No.
I think he had one catch for 15 yards at halftime, and then when Jameis came in, he got 5 more for 80 plus and a touchdown.
Yeah, he just started getting peppered once Jameis was in the game.
Yep.
And that's kind of why too. Like I thought I might get lucky again this week and play a low scoring team. He happened to do pretty well. Like I didn't think his Raiders would do much against the Jets. They ended up putting up decent scores, both of them. And then Olave had a good game. Kyler had a decent game too.
Look at his kicker, man. His kicker carried him 16 points out of his kicker.
Yeah, so that's
led his team.
16 points against. I think that was his highest scoring player, if I remember right. So
indeed it was.
And
it worked out for him. He's had Tua. He had Aaron Rodgers get hurt, but he had Tua on his roster. Tua just happens to go on bye this week, and what happens? Kyler Murray is the guy he's been holding on to for about a month. Comes in this week and plays. So just kind of the stars aligned for Edgar here. He had Kyler Murray last year when he got hurt, and he was unfortunately won a title. But then now he's got Kyler, so he's probably banking on Kyler just getting mad points here because the rest of his team is kind of so-so. I mean, the kicker led his team, and luckily it got a victory for him.
Yeah, Kyler has a pretty, I don't know, I want to say brutal, but he does play San Francisco week 15. And then at Chicago, at Philadelphia. So it's
But he looked good. I don't know if you guys saw much of the Kyler, but he was scrambling around. I mean,
saw the toddler run.
Very good. Yeah.
I know Tim loves the Kyler Murray run. Honestly, I watched the game. I was excited to see Kyler. I had Kyler 2 years ago on my roster. Being a former manager, having Kyler run the team. I'm a fan of his. I love what he does. He even did the famous read option play that he always does, where he's a magician with it. It always looks like it goes into the running back's stomach, and then there he goes, takes off to the left, and no one touches him. So it's great. He was able to pull off one of those, and they were smart enough not to make him do the tush push and made Clayton Tune do it. So good job, Arizona coaching staff, of not getting your guy injured. Well done. But yeah, I thought for our first game back after such a long layout, I mean, he missed virtually half of last season and all the way till week 9 of this season, first half of this season. So he's missed the whole season of football, and he came back 19 for 32. Yeah, a quarterback rating of 59, not great, but 240 yards, 250 yards almost. He threw one pick, but he ran a touchdown. He looked good. 15 points for your first game back. And the prospect,
especially on that team as well. It's not like he's coming back and playing for the Eagles. He's coming back and playing, on the 49ers and Chiefs. I mean, he's got, as we were talking about with Dobbs, he's got, Hollywood Brown and, McBride, I guess. James Conner came back, but that's only going to help you so much. His weapons aren't spectacular. I mean, he still looks good out there.
Yeah. Even though he does move like he has no knees, you're right, Tim. It looks like a baby running, with his legs locked. Defenses still can't tackle him. The amount of jukes he did, I was like, Kyler's back. He had no knee brace on. Yeah, they couldn't get him. I was like, wow, the defensive line would just chase him all around the field. I was like, oh, he's really back. This is good to see. So I'm sure once he gets his throwing motion back a little bit, and if he's actually reading the playbook this time and studying, sky's the limit for him. So maybe Arizona is looking on up. And you're right, Cody McBride. He might be the breakout tight end of the year, more than Laporta. He's been incredible over the last week.
2 out of the last 3 weeks. Him, you have to put Laporta in that category. Kincaid as well with Knox out. It'll be interesting when Knox comes back how that shakes out. But McBride recently with Dobbs and with Kyler, he's been getting peppered with targets, and he's catching the ball and getting yards after the catch with it as well. Yeah, so he's a guy to watch too. So it's funny he's coming back now because it kind of might ruin Arizona's chances at a top 5, top 7 draft pick. So I don't know if you're a Cardinal fan what you're rooting for. If you're happy to have Kyler back, but if he wins too many games, it could kind of hurt the team in the long run.
Hey,
and a
so
new Call of Duty game did just come out too, so
That's true.
we'll see if
Oh.
we'll see if Kyler's how much he's going to be studying the playbook. But I think
fair point.
he definitely looked healthy though, and I think he probably could have come back a few weeks ago, but I think they were a little bit careful with him. So yeah, but
it was a
I
good
don't
game to
know.
bring. It was a good team to bring him back against at home against the Falcons. It was a very smart
rather than
decision.
Cleveland last week.
Yeah.
Let's throw the rookie out there against Cleveland. Yeah.
No, it was you know what? When an organization does decisions like that, they are looking out for their best interest long term. I'm good with that, right? They're like, okay, we believe in this kid, and it was believing in him. Like, hey, we don't want to put you in a bad situation. We want to put you in a good situation. Come back, have success, and that's what they did. So, and things might pan out better for Arizona. Obviously, not late this season, but maybe next season as they start to build this. And if they can get a top 5 pick, maybe they can pick up an offensive lineman or a number 1 wide receiver somewhere. They'll be all right. But as far as the Raiders go, they got Miami next week, KC after that, then Minnesota, then the Chargers. Whew, that's Raiders schedule.
Tough string of defenses.
That's a gambit. I mean, that's all 5 of all those teams are going to put up points against them, right? I mean,
Chargers.
Chargers
there are no guarantees with the Chargers. So
they just put up 38 against Detroit's defense. Detroit defense is not bad. It's not terrible, but it's
Seattle did the same earlier in the year. Seattle put up 37, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They're susceptible, but
Aiden or Justin Herbert. I mean, Aiden O'Connell, Justin Herbert.
Herbert.
I'm gonna.
Well, there's no debate there.
Yeah. But I mean, Edgar's also relying on Jacobs and Adams, and those are tough defenses that he's got to go against as well. So just for the Raiders in general, it's gonna be a tough couple weeks for him.
Yeah, but I mean, definitely those first few. I just the Chargers, you just don't know what you're gonna get on a given week. Their defense can look
like they did last week.
Yeah, they might look phenomenal that week, or they might not show up. I don't know. They might shut down Jacobs and Adams goes off, or they might shut down Adams and Jacobs goes off. So, but yeah, it's definitely Miami going up against Miami though will be a test for sure. KC,
because he's riding that Raiders defense and he's riding Devontae. Where Devontae might actually get work in that Miami game because they're going to be forced to throw a lot, but Jacobs might get nothing in that Miami game because they'll be trailing by so much. Right, so they'll bring in White, probably Zamir White or someone else to.
Jacobs is an underrated pass catcher, though. He can get out of the back and he can catch passes and get some receiving yards.
I mean, it's a good point, but I mean, is he going to be as productive as if he got 20 totes a game? Let's say. I don't think so.
No, but I think especially with Pierce there at the helm. I mean, he's gotten over 25 carries the last 2 games. We've seen teams, even if they're down, like the Lions, for example, and 49ers kind of before this year, if they go down, they might still just hand the ball off and use that as their best way to come back into it. And then that opens up the play action game. So he still might get, even if they're down 14-21, he still might get 20 plus carries.
Yeah, especially against offenses like that. They're going to be trying to
run the clock.
As much.
Slow the game down. I get that.
Yeah. But whether they can do it or have the time to do it, it depends on how far they get behind if they're able to hang or not. But yeah, he's definitely feeding Josh Jacobs these first couple games.
I just don't see the Raiders defense. They've had some fun the last couple weeks playing the Jets and the Giants the last couple weeks, so I don't think the high times are over, and they're going to come back down to reality a little bit and be
kind of like the Chargers. Yeah. The Chargers got Tyson Bagent and then Zach Wilson, now Jared Goff. Yeah, it'll be a rude awakening probably, but
so he'll probably be suffering at that position pretty bad there. So we'll see what happens. And I would put Edgar's panic meter at the middle section because he's sitting at 4-6 after this week's win. He's still 2 games under 500, but he's been part of that cluster we're talking about, right, Cody? That cluster with Ricky. The cluster with Romo, Tim is Angel just outside now. Of it. Angel now, so it's 5 guys. In that 4 and 6 cluster, and with those matchups coming up, and if your team's so heavily swayed towards one set of players on one team, right? Just like how these teams switch to the Cowboys, but he's got good matchups, so you can expect to win those games. I'm not so confident in the Raiders doing that because of the too much density with one team that he has. So panic meter's definitely in the middle tier zone.
Saints are on a bye next week.
Middle too high. Yeah, I would go middle
Yeah.
to high because the Raiders bye is still coming up. You mentioned the Saints. That's half his roster there. It talked about the Cardinals getting tough matchups. I would put him middle to high just because he's near the bottom of that cluster and he's got some tough matchups coming up. Plus, half his team still has their bye week to experience.
Yeah, it's a good point. Good point.
The Raiders are on bye week 13, and Kyler's playing at Pittsburgh that week.
Tough
so
matchup,
but it depends on what moves he makes. I mean, he's got Tua, of course, against Washington, so that's kind of a no-brainer right there, probably. But
that's a start. That's a set it, forget it for sure.
Yeah. So,
but Edgar's last 4 games, he's got Angel this coming week, right? Who definitely very beatable, but without the Saints there and Raiders tough matchup. So we'll see what happens there. But then he's got Cody, then he's got me, and then he's got Alex. So he's got 3.
I might push it a little higher than mid to high as that panic meter. Those are I think 3 of the 4 top scoring teams in the league overall. Me, you, and Alex are in there.
Yeah, so
not great with all those buys too.
Edgar's definitely in oh shit mode. Yeah, panic meters is on high alert right now. So that's a good call. So I would say Angel probably number 1 on the panic meter, and Edgar is right there next to him. So
I'd agree with that.
All right. Well, that's all of our matchups going into next week. Anything sticking out to you guys as far as what could be, what we saw this last week being really great games, really fun games. But going into this week, November 19th, right before the Thanksgiving break, what do we see as potential big-time games that can blow up, and provide some good fantasy relevance?
From an NFL perspective, looking at the fantasy league, I'm watching that matchup with Ricky and Carlos. If Ricky ends up winning, I don't think Carlos is going to have enough juice to make it back into the playoffs. So that's really important there. Plus Ricky with that one, if he can win that one, it'll just bump him up to maybe even a 6 seed in the playoffs, and that'll give him a little bit of breathing room for the first time. And then the other one I'm watching is Tim and Carlos, as we've been talking about those panic meters. They're going head to head, so that could be a loser leaves town match maybe. That's what I'm looking at from our fantasy league perspective.
Very nice. Yeah. Definitely 2 matchups that are very big implication when it comes to seeding and who's going to stay into that top 8 tier. Tim, I mean, I like your chances against Romo next week. It's you securing a 6 win would be obviously big time for you to stay out of that cluster, right? You don't want to be in that cluster for sure. I see that game with Angel and Edgar being the highlight of next week, right? Because the person who loses that game, because the person that loses that would be potentially 7 losses for Angel, right? He definitely panic meter, and then Edgar, right? He's going to be forced to right before the trade deadline make a move if he wants to secure some wins, because he will have the Raiders on the bye. You hold on to those guys and just eat that loss. I don't think you can. So that's it's a big matchup, Edgar and Angel. That's the one I'll be watching this week. What about you, Tim?
In our fantasy league, or
I mean both fantasy and NFL, bro.
Well, I mean, I'm mostly worried about my own team at this point. I can't really worry about what anyone else does, because if I don't win at least a couple more games, it's not looking great.
Good perspective.
But I mean, the one between Ricky and Carlos, obviously it helps that they're playing each other. I guess I'll be rooting for Carlos in that one. Sorry, Ricky, but that would make both of you guys 4-7. So if I happen to lose, I'll still at least be ahead of you by a game. And then Angel and Edgar, kind of the same thing. They're both 4-6 now. So obviously, one of them's going to end up 5-6 after that. So it's going to be really close. So I'm just hoping that my guys show up. I'm hoping Achan shows up, and you know, that's all I can really worry about at this point. So.
Yeah, you know, and 2 games in the as one of cars NFL wise that are going to have a lot of implications for the matches that you just talked about. Tim, is that Raiders Dolphins game, right? That has a lot. Your team is highly dependent on the Dolphins this week having big games. Edgar's team is highly dependent on the Raiders having a big game, and then the Eagles Chiefs. Right, we're looking at that. That's the Sunday night game, but that's really going to affect more
Monday night.
Monday night.
Monday night. I apologize. Monday night game, which is going to be great. But it's only going to affect Rob and that team and Alex. So seeding purposes is going to affect that game. So very, very interesting.
Yeah, one that I'm looking at from the NFL perspective that kind of sneakily is going to have a good amount of fantasy implications that might not stick out at first is the Seahawks and the Rams playing each other. Both teams don't have, spectacular defenses, but they have a lot of offensive weapons. So Rams coming off a bye. Is Kyron going to be back? Is Stafford going to be looking with another week extra